Welcome to the Wellness Pulse with Monica Stevens. From CPR to self care, staying in rhythm with your well being. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Continuing with our CPR series. After all, CPR is good for every week, not just National CPR and AED Week. So we're going to keep the momentum going. And today I'm excited because I've got guest Jeffrey Gladney with CPR Plus Medical Management. How are you today?
I'm excellent. And how are you?
I am doing well. Just excited. It's a great day, sun shining. Not much to complain about. Excited because we're getting ready to have this conversation.
Good.
Yeah, so since we got you here, and I have the pleasure of knowing you in person, but why don't you share a little bit about CPR Plus Medical Management? That title in and of itself is a little bit kind of lends a little mystery because you've got the CPR Plus, you've got the medical management, and then tell me, of course, I know that anyway, you tell me about your roles and titles and, about your business and your day-to-day events.
Well, I'll just tell you a little bit about CPR Plus. CPR Plus Medical Management. I was actually birthed in 1996. So that'll tell you a little bit about my age, but that's irrelevant. But I actually been teaching now for 33 years. So had my first instructor certification back in 1992. So it was a kind of interesting thing, American Heart Association at that time. And I'll kind of go way back. A lot of times people ask me, why did I actually become a CPR instructor? So I'll have to start all the way back there, kind of give you a kind of understanding of where CPR plus medical management came from. So back when I was 5 years old, I was actually wanted to be a physician. And so I went to the military at that particular point in time, years ago. Before that, I went to college and then eventually I went to the military. I wanted to become a physician through the military, but I was already trained in the National Guard. So I got out the military, did have an EMT license, and then I worked for IU. I gave shots and consults going overseas, but I also managed a big medical records division in that hospital. Also, I was actually over that clinic. That's actually what I did also in the military. So I was in a IU family practice, and the chief of IU family practice, they was hiring 6 doctors from out the country, and they wanted their own CPR instructor. So I had BLS, American Heart Association, and so there was about maybe 15 employees in there. So she came in and said anybody wanted to take the instructor training course. Well, the weird thing about that is that I raised my hand and nobody else in that whole entire room out of 15 employees raised their hand. So they said, well, you it. So I took my CPR certification back in 1992 and became a CPR instructor and taught one class. That first class, then I teach another class for an entire year. So it's kind of weird. And put it this way, I taught a class a year and then another year, I taught 2 classes and then got referred. And before you know it, I went from teaching one class a year to one class a month to one class a week, 3 or 4 classes a week, 5 to 6 classes a week, quitting every job I had to 7 classes, 7 to 8 classes a week. So I had to kind of evaluate a lot of things. So it's kind of weird. Just a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked me, "What made you raise your hands? Did God just tell you just to raise your hands, and was it just your passion and purpose?" I says, "Listen, I just wanted to be off of work for 2 days." so, so you never know why you really do a certain thing, but you're so glad that you did. So it took me a while, but after I began to kind of really drum up the business, I was really forced to quit every job. And as I grew in business, um, passion and understanding that, from the age of 45 to 65, African American men are more prone to have heart disease, die from a heart attack than any other particular group of people. I was in that group. Well, not only was I having the passion for it because of me and people I hung around, but also wanted to also spread that news to everybody I touched. Well, it wasn't just a point about race or hereditary or all those other things. I just want to touch everybody, my circle, and then outside of my circle. So I was able to go to Ohio, I was able to go to Michigan, and I've really been afforded all these different places. So I developed CPR Plus those years, and it just allowed me to do a lot of things, and really homed in on CPR Plus medical management because simply it wasn't just the point of CPR Plus. CPR was one thing, but Plus was the biggest thing. It's not the medical management part. I added a whole bunch of things. So over time, yeah, I taught CPR, but then also added on first aid. Then somebody else says, hey, we need to have universal precaution. So then I added on universal precaution. And somebody said, oh, I need drug tests. Then I added that on. So then somebody says, some of them are having problems with my leaders here. So I do leadership development. And then I says, something, I'm having problems with growing this business. So I also did mentorship. So I added a whole bunch of other different things. So and I've been blessed that, I taught quite a few different, I guess high-end people, if you want to talk about. Did WebMD one time. And I always chuckle about it because when I did WebMD, I went and taught the class when I was writing the invoice out and I was talking to the writes the check, and they would say, "Who do you write the check with?" And I says, "Oh, CPR Plus Medical Management." So, okay, do we send this to this department? I says, "Well, you can give me you can send me the check." And it was kind of like I was like this big company, but I was like, "Well, CPR Plus is me, myself, and I." And I was kind of, I was kind of happy to kind of say that because sometimes it's all about representation and what people see you as. Sometimes they see me as a big company, a big person. So it was kind of good. But that being said, um, I I hold CPR certifications in the American Heart Association, National Safety Council, the American Red Cross, and HSI, a site for HSI. Anything else?
That was great. It cracks me up a little bit because that's what I'm finding out. Like a lot of us are, we've got these titles and divisions, and it's like
Sure.
just a few people. And so, a lot of us are, just small departments or individuals, and it's just cool like to meet the people and the faces. But I don't know if you ever used to watch the show In Living Color, and but there's this one episode where, and it just kind of vaguely, but they used to tease me about being Jamaican. And it's funny, I love Jamaica actually. But I remember there was an episode where like they came in and they wanted to talk to like the manager. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm the cashier. Then it was like, oh, I want to talk to the manager. Then they put on the manager, I'm the manager. So then they're like, well, I need somebody from maintenance. So then they bent over and put on their maintenance thing. And then they needed like maybe somebody from the cook, from the culinary department. So now they got the culinary, yeah, oh, now you need, translation services. Okay, yeah.
Absolutely. Bunch of hats.
And so
Absolutely.
that often sticks with me when, especially when I'm out myself, because like you, except just recently I did it. We were People's Choice CPR, and at the last Life Saving Summit, I was inspired. And I kind of was like, oh, People's Choice CPR Plus would have been cute, or but anyway, in safety, because I wanted to expand. We've taught CPR and first aid the entire time, but now I'm getting ready to offer, what I mean, some other things, and I wanted to include that. So I love that, the plus, and I just love the trajectory and the way that things kind of develop for you. That's really cool to have the opportunity to kind of mentor and to lead. I just think those things are awesome. I think I'm stepping into my mentorship season. I've had a few people approach me about things, and it does kind of make you feel like, huh, you think I should be mentoring you, huh? At least for me.
Listen, one thing I can't tell you, and I'll tell you this, and I'll tell every entrepreneur. So this goes past CPR. We have to view ourselves as the ocean. The ocean is this vast, big body. We have to look at ourselves as the ocean. The ocean is never empty because there's always rivers and streams going to it. It is up to
Mhm.
us to flow, to develop rivers and streams. It is up to us to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, rivers and streams always flow away. What is that? That's our bills. That's also doing business. There's always money, and unfortunately, it costs us expenses to do business, even life
Mhm.
itself. Okay, but it's up to us to develop rivers and streams. So every time we do something different in our business and we grow our business, we level up our business, guess what happens? Now we have developed a stream. And if we work that stream long enough, it'll become a river and it'll continue to fill the ocean. It is up to us. So continue to be, and this right now, to me, is you actually developing a stream because however it happens, eventually it'll be a river for you. And I believe that. Mentorship.
Absolutely love the way you put that, especially as an ocean lover. I came on vacation here to Florida because I fell and moved and stayed on vacation, never left because of my love for the ocean. So I just
Good.
love that analogy, and I so agree. Because I've always been into, I like to call myself an education enthusiast. I love
Good.
teaching, educating, empowering people, and I mean, my first, I mean. I guess CPR and first aid, I've been doing it for a while, even longer than I've been a registered nurse or a nurse even at all. So, of course, near and dear to my heart. And with that, of course, like mental health and all of those things. So I've come to be able to, teach some of those things. And, when you think of the ocean, you just think of, just so many. I just love that analogy because it is just so full, and the streams that you're creating, you know what I mean? Filling, creating rivers and feeding back, it is just a beautiful analogy. And then if you are thinking about money, they talk about streams of income.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so I think
Absolutely.
that is awesome. So Jeffrey, tell me, um, with your variety of services and with you offering services through AHA, HSI, NSC, and then did you name a couple other bodies? I know you mentioned the drug testing and the management services and so forth.
Mm.
What professions are you seeing? Because of course with AHA you're getting medical professionals. I've taught for HSI back, well, now currently, and when they were ASHI. So I know personally we had a lot of phlebotomists, people who were kind of maybe like healthcare adjuncts. It can kind of go either way. They could have AHA or maybe HSI or maybe even NSC, depending on their work environment and what that culture was used to. But with
Mhm.
you, in the business, having taught over 30 years, with a variety of services and so forth, what professions do you find that you see a lot of?
Childcare. Childcare is number one. The requirement is just there. And then the turnover, unfortunately, is I mean, and don't get me wrong, once they love you, they love you. So
Right.
I've had other instructors go to some of the places where I go, and they say, "Hey, I'll do CPR for you for $20." And they says, "Oh, I got somebody," and then they'll just hang up. And but once they love you, they love you. But sometimes they do look for other people. But they're always opening up. Different childcare workers are always required to have it, so they're always that particular area is just beaming for instruction. It's a requirement. Also, construction workers. Yeah, a lot of people don't go to that area. It's a requirement also. So right now we're dealing with an area where there's a lot of storms and situations. Believe it or not, I did one time. I went and did just people just cutting down trees. There's a requirement, especially if in fact they work for. Here you have AES for different electrical services. They're required to cut those trees back. Guess what? They're also required to have first aid CPR. So keeping that in mind, I would be mindful of those particular areas. But everybody needs it. Um, some companies, for instance, some restaurant chains, I have done a few of those. Um, you have to go into the to that area because they only want, even though they only want adult CPR first aid, and then choking. So they kind of want to water down class. Well, you have to say, hey, that's not what I can give you in some areas. Now, of course, you can give them only CPR, but that's just kind of what it is. But that is there is a group of people that kind of gets lacked when it comes to target marketing. So that's those areas are very prevalent. Churches are always going to be but again it's not so much unfortunate, but there is a situation where you know discounts deals. You do have to be prepared and ready to give a significant discount from some of the churches, and rightfully so.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely true.
Right.
Um, so you actually kind of touched on several of the things that I wanted to make sure that we discussed. Um, you've talked about how long you've been in the CPR training space and kind of how you got into it. And you maybe even touched a little bit on maybe some of the gaps that were, or I guess the way that your story came about with you being led to volunteer. For the instructor training, and thank goodness that you did, because think about how many lives that you've touched and the way that you kind of acclimated it to self, like, hey, there's a lot of Black men in my age group, or one day I'll be in that age group, if you hadn't gotten there at that time, and they're going to be affected by heart disease. So in that vein, have you is there any of the services or classes did you kind of, I guess, or whatever initiatives were they inspired through something like that for a need in the community, like in your area in Indianapolis?
Well, the one thing about about me, I'm a licensed minister, so I do have I've been fortunate to really share the word. I do go to a very active. I'm a very active member. We are an active social community church in Martindale with Brightwood. The unfortunate thing is that there was a very large amount of people that lost their life in COVID time. A lot of times people thought they lost their life from COVID. And don't get me wrong, people did, but a lot of people lost their life because of pre-existing issues. So pre-existing issues were a big deal. And so these classes really homed in. I think that the unfortunate thing is that CPR uh, does not really home in about the risk factors part. We don't really home in on that. Lack of exercise, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, smoking, drinking and drug abuse, stress, poor diet, age, race, gender, heredity. We don't spend a lot of time talking about those things. I always try to tell people is that we really don't want to ever do CPR. We just want to recognize those signs and symptoms. We want to live as healthy as possible. And we really don't want to have those signs and symptoms, but we want to be health and wellness. So we in Indianapolis and in Martindale Brightwood with my church Overcoming, we try to really focus in on wellness and community, especially wellness and community. So we have a wellness and community ministry. So that's what we're trying to focus in on. And these classes allow us to begin to start teaching people in the environment about CPR, wellness, and how it all kind of correlates together. Because you do have people that have those diabetes, CHF, COPD. You have people that have those issues, and unfortunately, they may fall out and have a heart attack or have some type of issue. You'll be doing CPR. So it does affect the initial environment in Indianapolis and in our community, in the community of Martindale, right? So that being said, I think that the more people we train in our initial area, we just make a broader impact in Indianapolis and the communities outside of Indianapolis. Believe me. That's kind of how, if that helps.
Awesome. It does. I mean, I think that's, I mean, very, again, very inspirational because I too see it that way. Like, I loved learning to be an instructor to give someone the empowerment to save somebody's life when they need it the most. But I also don't want to be in that situation. So,
Better believe it.
the pregame, to it, and that too, I think definitely correlates with my health and wellness aspirations for those in my community and those around me and for myself. Um, so I just love that, I mean, I definitely, and just thinking about your earlier commentary, we are an ocean, so I have to make sure that I feed into, those rivers and streams. And if you think about, just water and how we're mostly water anyway, and how that connects and feeds and, just kind of transfers the energy, it's just a beautiful kind of, if you get all spiritual on me, or if I
Absolutely.
go on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess then this kind of seems does CPR, I mean, maybe it's silly to ask, so forgive me if it is. But does that kind of fall in line then with the CPR plus medical management's mission, or like does your ministry kind of or your ministry work, do they kind of overlap? And did they always?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell you how I really feel about anything you do. Okay, and so this may get past some of that, but I really don't feel that sometimes what you do is that you don't if it's really your calling or your purpose, you'll work in it. And sometimes you'll feel like you're not really actually working. Sometimes when I teach, whether I get paid or not, which I usually do for money, whether I get paid or not, I feel that it's so much, it's so rewarding as if that I would do it without getting paid. So that means that it's somewhat not only my passion, but it's my purpose. I don't believe that I'm actually, and this is probably will surprise a lot of people, but is it just my purpose and my calling to be a CPR instructor? I'm really just called to encourage and to see people moved upward. So what does that really mean? When you leave my class and you are empowered, that means that you understand the principles, you feel that you can actually save a life. This was it. I feel that I've done my job per se, but I feel that I've actually created an atmosphere for you to learn. I feel that most of the time, especially in classes where you're renewing, I feel that I really don't teach you nothing new. I just pull out what you already know. So that's the goal and objective. It's not really to be such a teacher, but I'm an encourager. I encourage you to bring out that stuff that you already know, put it on the forefront, and refine it. My goal is to retool what you already know. And then what you don't know, let's put something positive in there that you can go and use for the rest of your life. So the question was, do I think that this all intertwines of who I am? Oh, most definitely. Would I be a CPR instructor and still be an encourager, a lover of the Lord? Certainly. Would I be a lover of the Lord and a CPR instructor? Probably, certainly, because they all are one and the same. We want to look at it from that perspective.
I definitely do because although CPR instructing is, like my passion, I have others, and I do think it fits into an umbrella of just wanting to encourage and to educate, and hence, the title I've adopted the education enthusiast, because I like to, what I mean? I'm enthusiastic
Love
about
it.
gaining this education, whatever it is I'm teaching. And you're right. If we lived in a society that did not operate on money, that was maybe just on bartering, or if I just had a role and all our needs were met, yes, I would be very happy educating others and empowering them. I think maybe that was why it was difficult to put a price on, what people charge or what you get paid to teach CPR, because it is an experience. You're setting kind of an environment to, increase confidence, increase, their knowledge, but you have to have a climate that is, what I mean, that is rich for them to learn. You have to be able to tune into some of maybe their learning, needs, or, things that are going to be kind of distracting or kind of set you at a disadvantage. I've taught a lot of people who English was not their first language, maybe it wasn't their second. That in and of itself, I couldn't imagine going to another country trying to take a medical exam, and maybe I'm trying to remember how to conjugate this verb not in my native tongue, not in my second tongue, but in the third language, and remember the concepts. Um, so if I can make you feel confident that I'm not judging you, we're gonna not let this, if you can demonstrate what you need and you demonstrated that you understand the concepts, I'm not letting this language barrier or whatever else, um, get in our way. And that's really rewarding. Um, and that happened early on in my career, something my mother and I did. Some of our clients, like I said, had, rich and varied ethnic backgrounds. So that was something that was just, when you're called, sometimes it's not like you're, working. And although it's not the same, I used to work in retail a lot coming up, and I was good at sales, but not because I wanted to sell you something. I enjoyed, one of my first jobs was in a women's clothing store. So women coming in, getting ready for a new job or a date or whatever it is, I enjoyed that experience, what you were looking for, finding and presenting you the options. And because of that, I was good at selling credit cards, because now after I've sold you all these options, so I went on to retail management, but it was not a passion because my motivations for being there were not based on your dollars per square footage. It was based on the experience and the assistance that I empower, so I think when I learned to teach CPR, it was like finding that again, because people come in, nervous and they don't know what to do. And when they leave, their shoulders are squared back, their chests are
Sure,
puffed out.
sure.
And when you have had people call you and let you know that they were able to use those emergency skills when their loved one was in danger, I mean, that is just totally humbling. I remember the first time somebody called me and told me that had happened. The lady saved her child, and actually, I wish she had been around. Felicia Edmondson and her CPR rap would have been great for this, because that lady had a child that had some complications and went home with a lot of bells and whistles. And I didn't talk to her for a while, and it was like she had been on me about the CPR certification. That's when we used to have to wait for it to get mailed out or whatever.
Sure, yeah, yeah,
Bigger turnaround. And
yeah.
the young lady, I didn't hear from her. And so then she let me know that, her child had coded. And I was like, were you prepared? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't sure where the story was finna go. And bless God, that child made it. And I just felt so awesome that God had used me to. With that. I hope I never forget that story. But in hindsight, she did actually forget the steps, and her uncle was there who was able to
Yeah,
remind her of what she needed to do and kind of bring her back to reality, which is why that CPR wrap, product,
sure.
it made me think of that. But this was years beforehand. That's one of the reasons, probably. I've never met Felicia, but I'm a big advocate of her product just because, you don't know how you're going to respond in some of those situations, and having a backup, like what if you're by yourself and you don't have anybody to remind you? Um, so I like all these things are, intertwined, all these rivers, we're flowing from one big ocean. So um, just to see the connections are awesome.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting, just like you said, awareness and I always my goal and objective at the beginning. I even wrote in my mission statement was really just to bring awareness, um, bring awareness of emergency care classes to the society, help people more conscious that they can actually interfere in death. Because a lot of times people don't quite understand the dynamics of that. They think that once a person's done, they're done. But you can actually be part of them being revived, or understanding the dynamics of that really caused me to be more of a studier, more of an understander. I'm thankful of medical background. Just for instance, you on the other hand, being a nurse, you have a different level, and one of the unfortunate challenges that someone like you and me do have with we have these vast medical background. But the unfortunate thing is that there are people in this getting into the industry that have no background at all. They just want it for money and without passion. And you can even do it for money as long as you have passion. You good, but just want to do it only for money. And so you have that particular situation that kind of begins to play an unfortunate role. And that being said, it's always good to see people that really love what they do and then they give it all. And so kudos to you for that. That's really where I'm going with that. But that is a challenge that we do have, just keeping keeping CPR what it is today, understanding the dynamics that it's important to follow the rules. So it's all good. uh, but
you
anyway,
know uh, Definitely a little bit about where we've been, and where we kind of are, because that you kind of I was going to ask you how things kind of had changed over the years, and with the pandemic, um how some of the things that maybe have changed for you in your area, and some of the instructors that are some of the challenges us as instructors have had. But you kind of touched on all of those a little bit. So is there anything really you want to add about maybe the way we've evolved, I guess, either with our instructing or in response to things that have evolved in our, like in our world?
I'll just add really in brief, just a couple of things. I think that the platform is getting ready to change. I think in October or sometime. Understanding the dynamics of that. COVID changed the game, so you do have people that you have. Unfortunately, you do have instructors are actually afraid. You do, which is an unusual thing, but it is a different day. You have you do have some of the general public that is contact. So how we deal with that moving forward will always be depending on the air. Hate to say it like that, but it's the truth going on in today's society. I think that, like I said, the platform change, how we get together um, in the future, it can be a challenge because still people are still fighting for a customer base. And I think it's enough customers, enough people out here where we can be effective together. And I love the way Brady and I'll Go Rescue does kind of get together. I love the summit. It's an awesome thing. Out of all the years, it's the first time I went to something of magnitude. It's like, okay, it just kind of come changes your life. So I really encourage all instructors to go and experience it. But that being said, also take somebody away from it. That's how I feel about you. Take somebody away because it takes two to kind of navigate. Microsoft did not become millionaires by themselves. Steve Jobs, he had a partner. So always remember, always, I woke up one morning and God bless me. He says, son, stop trying to sell your product, sell the system. There's a system to all this. And that's a leadership development.
Give me that tidbit for free, didn't you?
That's for free. And I ain't gonna go no further than that. That's for free.
I smile because again, the Life Saving Summit definitely allowed for, a collaboration of the minds, and you don't always not ever have I been afforded that opportunity like you before the Life Saving Summit, the way that people are getting together and with the way things have changed for me, just you kind of hit on it where with technology, because now the ways that I used to advertise and, I guess, a few things. I feel like the people who've been doing CPR for a long time, a lot of those that I've come in contact have a passion for it for whatever reason. It may have born out of loss. It may have born out of, opportunity that turned into something that they thought was worthy, that they, identified with. Maybe they were a survivor, a loved one was a survivor. Maybe they just were a healthcare provider that was tired of people coming in and, or, knowing that there could be something done in the public. But
Sure.
now, like when I started teaching like 15 years ago, I hardly ever knew any other CPR instructors.
Sure.
Now,
Sure.
like I said, a couple people I've even inspired to do such a thing. There's lots of other people that, are doing it just in my area. I took some time off from maybe actively moving the business forward to kind of focus on life, if you will, or life
Sure.
focus on me. Um,
Sure.
and during that time, there's a lot more businesses in the area. I know that they can't give the experience that I give, but it is, competition. And thankfully, although I've been in business for a while, not on a large scale, with Brady and, the Life Saving Summit family, it's like, hey guys, don't focus on the money, focus on the message. And when like if you are a Jesus lover, when you put Christ first, you don't focus on the small stuff. You focus on the bigger picture and everything else falls into place. And although, Brady is a God-fearing, Jesus loving man. So,
Absolutely.
is inspired, but, I'm not comparing the two in that way. I'm just saying, Brady was, I feel, great with, that's the message, propel the
Sure.
the CPR and AED industry forward, and everything else will fall in place because, like you said, there's a lot out here. And what I've noticed is with the people banding together, I'm more aware of there being things that are available, like people, what you can't measure can't be improved. So now you have AED management programs, things that are filling in the gaps. You've got collaborations with people from all over
Right.
the country. We're getting laws, legislature changed where, now these, industries need to have this, need to have that. And, that is just showing when we unite together, you know what I'm saying, what we can do. So I think something like the summit is awesome. But also then with technology, consumers of the classes are looking for different platforms. This professionals and other professionals from different industries, with them, needing or becoming aware that they need, their CPR and so forth. So you're getting more education kind of from different places, and we're able to, get out and kind of service and meet more needs. And with,
Sure.
there's, kind of enough for all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. If we understand the dynamics of that, we'll market the world.
Oh, I'm sorry. And also, I was going to say with recent years with all of this IT stuff, now you're getting different blended options to kind of
Sure.
meet, and like I said, when I first started 15 years ago, the AHA was kind of like the first place that people went for CPR. I don't know where other industries, because I was more of a medical kind of grew up AHA type of thing. I'm not really sure where other people went, like, if you were a phlebotomist or if you worked in like a safety industry, if you were a construction worker. I'm not really sure where you went for your CPR, needs, where you went to look or who you asked. Um, Now, of course, I know that there's, local safety awareness meetings and whatnot that you can do. But what I was going to get to is like your TikTok, your Eventbrite, your Instagrams, so now it's like the younger generations kind of want to do stuff a little bit more techie, and we're having to kind of respond to those things. And like you said, the platforms are changing because now also we can measure so many things that haven't been met and so
Sure.
many needs. Like, I joke about, now I can buy outfits for my mannequins, or they come with outfits. We used to have to put t-shirts on them,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
but now, you know what I'm saying? You got a whole, different variety. So I just upped the game. My girls now, we're in Florida. She's in a bikini. Um,
See.
Well, yeah, I mean, we got to brace, like, like you said, to the plight, the disparity between women not receiving bystander CPR, and,
Sure.
um,
Absolutely.
just, different things like that have evolved. And I think if we continue to, like, work together and kind of assess these needs, we can keep having innovations and great conversations like these. Um,
Sure.
well, I know I've held you here for quite a while, so, I guess I'll just have you sum up. Mr. Gladney, why is it that you do what you do as far as your CPR and AED instruction?
My goal and objective is to train the world. That's my goal and objective. I can, no matter how I water down that, however, I tell you anything, I just really want to save a life, neither through you, through me, through somebody. At the end of the day, I want to be able to help somebody else, or be a or some type of vessel to allow somebody else to be there to bring somebody else not only back to life, but let them be more fruitful in this world while they can, because our life is limited. So at the end of the day, let us really be more impactful while we're here and be more healthy. That's the golden objective with CPR Plus.
Wonderful, wonderfully said. Wonderful mission and vision. I love that. I've enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here at the Wellness Pulse, giving us a little insight to what you do. If anybody needed to find you, where can they get in contact if they needed your services? How could they reach CPR Plus Medical Management?
Well, first of all, am we doing my webpage? But so I'm going to just give you a few numbers. You can call me at 317-714-1444. That's always going to be the best. You can even text me. I'm personable, so you can text me. Of course, you can Facebook me, CPR Plus Medical Management Company, or you can just look up Jeffrey Gladney. My name, Gladney. Except for you to say Gladney, period. Gladney. That's my name. So you can also look me up. I'm pretty popular in Indianapolis, but that's the best way to get with me. I teach anywhere between 5 to 7 classes, sometimes a week, but I am available. So look me up. We can do something. Okay? God bless everybody. This has been a pleasure. Pleasure. God bless you too.
Thanks again for listening. If you or anyone you know needs to learn CPR, first aid, or a life saving skill, please contact People's Choice CPR and Safety. From CPR to self care, the Wellness Pulse is staying in rhythm with your well being. I'm Monica Stevens. Take care.